Hey everybody, welcome back to Understanding Anxiety. So in the last couple of videos, we talked about some of the groundwork and fundamental ideas and principles of anxiety. We, went over the cycle, we went over some of the mental landscape issues as far as, what is anxiety and where does it come from and things like that. But today I'm excited. We're going to actually start doing a practical portion. So with the concepts I'm going to teach you today, as well as some practical work, you'll be able to actually take and apply this into your own life and see progress for yourself, which is what I'm really excited about. So to start off with, what I have up here on the board are your physical and spiritual needs. And what these are needs that you have as a human being in order to feel content, fulfilled, happy, whatever word that you put on that, complete. And they're very important and often overlooked. And the reason that we're going to go over this is because they relate very much so to the cycle of anxiety as well as your mental landscape. And so just to start off with, we have two broad categories. We have your physical and your spiritual needs. So on the physical side, we'll start there. We have eat, sleep, drink, rest, relax, play, and intimacy. So most of these seem pretty basic, and most people are somewhat aware of, oh yeah, I have to drink enough water, I need to make sure I'm sleeping, but it's a little bit more to it than that. And especially here in America, there's a lot of confusion between rest, relax, and play. So let's go over these individually and we'll kind of talk about what they are and what they can mean. So eat is pretty obvious, but the real question that you have to ask yourself is, are you eating enough? Are you eating well enough? What does your diet actually consist of? How many, small little snacks a day that you're kind of like letting fly by are happening in your diet? And now you're not going to get any judgment from me on any of this stuff, and I would, urge you not to judge yourself. We're just at this point kind of taking stock of where we are. The next is sleep. A lot of people have this issue because they say, oh, well, I go to sleep for 6-7 hours a night, but they don't really wake up refreshed. They're not sleeping well enough, right? And there's a lot of factors that can go into that as far as, especially these other physical needs. What are you doing the couple of hours before bedtime? If you're doing something that's mentally demanding, or if you're having late night snacks, that can affect your sleep pattern. Drink. So mainly, obviously, we want to be drinking a lot of water. This is not sodas, alcohol, even tea to some extent. Ideally, we want to be drinking as much water as we need, and typically that's not very well promoted. And so that's definitely an issue that we have to pay attention to as far as what we're doing in our lives. So these next three, they seem kind of similar at the surface, and part of that is linguistics and societal conditioning in America, but I'll go over them. So rest is the absence of doing anything, right? A lot of people would equate this to TV time, but that's not quite accurate. What rest really is where you're not actively doing anything. You're not trying to plan for tomorrow. You're not trying to accomplish anything. You're just sitting there, or laying on the beach, something like that, where you're just relaxed and completely not worried about any of it. You're not actively doing anything. So relax is a little bit different. My Tao master says the word relax means relax, as in return to a lackadaisical state, which is a little bit easier way to understand it. If you're lackadaisical, that's carefree. You're not letting the worries of the world concern you. I would almost say that this is a state of being where you're kind of like returning to your natural state of being. And that's something that's kind of pushed away from in America. And the reason is because if we go back to who we normally are, we won't be as profitable to the company, or we're not going to be liked by our family. So there's a lot of different reasons why this can be kind of a touchy issue, but it's very critical for us to be able to relax, to kind of let go of the constraints that we have in our life that are very necessary in some areas. And play is another big one. Very often, play is looked at as a negative thing. We're not accomplishing anything, or this isn't productive. But it's actually very productive. We have to be able to play. And the point of play is the play itself. It's not to accomplish anything. It's not a competition, although it can be competitive. But really, we're trying to almost be like a child again. We're out there to enjoy things and have fun. And it's a very important part of our lives that, if it's not taken care of, can have a huge impact on our mental health. The last one here is intimacy. I will put it to you like this. This is a well-documented scientific fact that humans need physical contact with each other. This is completely up to you as far as how you want to view this. It doesn't matter what kind of physical contact that you're having with another person. If there's no intimacy involved, then it's kind of null and void. And what I mean by that is that, shaking somebody's hand probably isn't the best form of intimacy. And on the flip side of that, you can be having sex with somebody and be completely non-intimate. So intimacy is not necessarily one or the other, but it's almost related to connection in the sense that you're trying to make a physical connection with that person that goes beyond just the surface, right? So that's kind of the physical need layout. I know these are kind of abstract ideas in the sense of what they may mean, and the important part is to figure out what it means to you. So every person is completely unique and different, and so what works for you as far as how much sleep you need or how much water you need to drink is going to kind of be dependent on your body and your circumstances. For instance, when I was working as a AC technician, I was drinking probably about twice as much water and eating about twice as much high salt food as compared to a different type of job. It's just the circumstances were different. My body needed all that extra in order to keep up. So this is very individual. There's not any set amount that I can give you that will be perfect for you. I can give you general ideas, but you're going to have to tailor it to yourself. So next over here we have the spiritual needs. So they are certainty, variety, connection, significance, growth, and contribution. And just really quick, I will notate that right here there's actually a split. And what that is, oh, you can't see that. Let's try this again. So it's said that these upper four are the base needs and that these lower two are the higher needs. What that means is that you're not going to be able to get these two needs met if you don't have these base four needs met. It's kind of like a pyramid idea if you have that. So if we'll go over these, we have certainty. And just as I was just saying, this is going to be intensely personal, but certainty is what makes you feel comfortable in your life in the sense that you're not afraid of something happening that's going to be drastic, right? For some people, this may be their financial status or their job. For some people who are maybe more social, it could be, their safety net or their network of friends. Whatever it is that gives you certainty, that makes you feel okay with everything. So the next one is variety. I'm sure you're all aware we cannot do the same thing day in and day out and be okay with it. We have to have some variety. We have to have a different landscape, different circumstances. I myself have a very high need for variety, and that kind of competes a little bit with my certainty at sometimes. But my point is that your variety is kind of up to you. If you're feeling overly bored, not just, oh, I'm a little bored, today, but if you're consistently feeling bored, if you're feeling monotonous, or that you have to change something, that's usually a sign that you need more variety in your life. So the next one is going to be connection. And I'm going to talk about this by itself and as well as with significance in a sense. So connection is our ability to connect to others. One of the major setbacks that we have with connection, especially here in the States, is that we don't look at vulnerability as a positive thing. We look at it as a weakness, and we try to weed that out, right? But once again, scientific fact, we are social creatures. We have to be able to connect to other people. And more importantly, we have to be able to connect to ourselves. And that's kind of, if we go back to that, mental landscape video, you can kind of see how if we're severing that connection to our ego or to our unconscious, that kind of creates that rift that helps formulate that anxiety. So connection is extremely important as well. Significance is kind of a touchy subject in the sense that there's a lot of stories that are advertised. There's a lot of movies and TV shows that are presented to us to make us feel like we're unique and special and individual. And those stories have a purpose, and I won't get too much into that. But my point is that significance is not a negative thing, but it also doesn't have to mean better than anybody else, or that you have to be this way unique person, or that you have to be so extraordinary in order for you to get your significance. That's not necessarily true. Significance just means, do you feel important? Do you feel like you matter? And I'm sure some of you are kind of already realizing that that's a very sensitive subject. Especially in today's world, it's easy to get lost in the mass of information or the mass of people, coworkers, friends, where we try so hard to fit in, and somehow we feel like we lose our significance or our uniqueness in there. So significance can play a big role in how you feel mentally. If you don't feel like that you matter, that's going to be a big issue, right? And that kind of relates back to connection in the sense that how we view other people and how we relate to other people can have a lot of effect on how we feel our value is, or our self-esteem. And so for these final two, like I said, these are the higher needs that you have to have the base needs met first in order to kind of get these ones going. So the first one is growth. Obviously, as human beings, we have a high need to grow. Even if you look at the laws of nature itself, if something isn't growing, it's dying. There's no pausing. There's no plateau in life. We have to be able to grow in order to be fulfilled and feel like that we have significance, that we're connecting, right? And then the last one is contribution. We want to feel like we have given back to the world, or given back to society, or even just to a couple of friends, if that's the scope of it. But whatever it is, the point is that when you have your needs met and you feel whole and complete and content, then you want to try and share that. You want to try and contribute that back to everybody around you in whatever way that you can. And that also relates back to significance and connection. And you can see how that all of these needs are kind of interrelated into each other. They're very distinct, different aspects, but you see how they affect each other. And so what I want to talk about with these needs, and of course I know that these are abstract again. If you guys have any questions, like I said, you can put a comment in the video. You can send me a message. I'll be happy to go over something a little bit more, or see how it's being met in your life, how it applies to you. But basically, my point of presenting this to you is that this is where we're going to start to get into the practical portion of it. Because how well these needs are met in your life is going to directly affect that cycle of anxiety that we've already talked about. If these needs aren't being met in your life, you're going to be at that low energy state. You're going to be more susceptible to anxiety. It's going to be easier if you have a low certainty to feel like that you're in a loss of control. And for a lot of people with anxiety, loss of control is kind of a core issue as far as some of their triggers go. So you can see how that's a very important thing. Sometimes it's variety. Sometimes it's a mixture of a few of these. If you're having an issue with growth, you don't feel like you're growing. These can cause a problem where you feel like you're not making progress, and that can actually help the anxiety cycle back around. And the same thing definitely applies on the physical side. If your body isn't, up to speed, if your body's not full of vitality, it's going to be much more susceptible to this anxiety, and it's going to be much more susceptible to, these triggers kind of coming up and taking over. I know for myself specifically, some of my triggers are very related to my physical body, and so I have to make sure that I'm taking care of my body, so that way I have the energy when stuff comes up to kind of work with it, to kind of overcome it in that sense. So I hope that you're able to relate, these needs as far as how they're able to contribute to that cycle. The concept I want to talk about at this point is well enough. As I said before, this is all highly individualistic. There's no specific number or ratio that I can give you that's going to apply perfectly to you. We all have different levels of each of these needs, but they do all need to be met well enough. So what that means is, if you are noticing things in your life that you're unhappy about or that you want to change, and you can identify which of these needs it applies to or is lacking, then you can kind of make that change, right? So oftentimes we'll find activities that we get involved in that will meet 2 or 3 of these needs. You know, I go out to a park every Sunday, and I go out there with my friends, and we go beat each other up with foam weapons. It's a blast. I love it. But it meets quite a few needs for me. It adds some variety to my life. It's connection with me and my friends. It's significance in the sense that, you know, I feel strong and powerful out there, and that I'm part of the team that matters, and I'm a strong player. Those are important things to me. You know, growth. I grow as a team player. I grow as an individual fighter. And after, you know, years of doing this, I'm starting to get to the contribution phase, where I'm able to kind of teach some of the newer people, you know, different tactics and things like that. So that's a very personal experience that you can see how that one activity is meeting all of these needs in a very good way. So at this point, how we're going to make this practical for you is that I have a couple of different things that I can give to you as far as what you can think about and what you can start to, you know, take notes on or work on. So first, I would like to see if you are able to identify the parts of the cycle of anxiety in your life. If you can identify where you're at in that cycle, that's going to kind of correlate to how well your needs are met. And so then once we have that correlation, we can say, oh, okay, so when I'm in this part of the cycle, that's usually these needs are low. That way we can make adjustments and kind of do things to help get more of that need met or get it to be met better. The other thing that we can do is we can start to introspect on, you know, where the anxiety is coming from. How do these needs correlate to your specific anxiety? You know, excuse me. Like I said, I know with mine and probably many others, certainty is usually a big player in anxiety. And so can you look into what happens with your anxiety and relate it to your physical and your spiritual needs and say, okay, so usually when I've stayed out all weekend and partied, I feel more susceptible, right? And like I said, there's no judgment. It's your life. Go party. I'm happy for you. But let's take an honest stock. You know, this is just for you. Take an honest stock of where you're at and how these needs are affecting that cycle, as well as contributing to the anxiety itself. And lastly, I do have a document that I'm going to upload as well to the comments of this video. And I actually am going to call this the needs worksheet. So what this is, it's going to have all of these needs listed, and it's also going to have a column on the right hand side, right? So I'm going to have all these boxes, and it's going to say percent met. So what that means is, on each of these needs, I want you to identify how well you think that need is met in your life. Consistently, not necessarily like, you know, day in and day out, but just over time in general. How well do you think that you eat? How well do you think that you're, you know, getting intimacy or connecting with people? You know, how much growth do you see in your life? And this is not, you know, if you want to work with me on that and share those things with me, I'll be more than happy to be vulnerable with you. But this is going to take a lot from you to be honest with yourself and say, you know, I don't think I'm drinking quite enough. You know, I don't think I have enough variety in my life. And you can kind of see for yourself where you're at on these needs. And from there, we can start to work on the next portion, which we'll talk about in the next video. But for now, we're just going to take some time and do some introspection, some self-evaluation, and we're just going to take stock of where we're at. We're going to try to apply these concepts to our lives so that way we have a clear understanding of what's happening. And then from there, we can actually start to make progress with it, right? So like I said, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. You can put in the comments if you're comfortable with that. If you'd rather a private message, I'm fine with that as well. I'll be happy to, you know, break any of these things down. I know this is kind of a lot of stuff to apply. And I hope that you guys really do take this sheet, you know, download it, you know, spend a couple of days, spend a week, you know, go over it and really look at what's going on in your life and say, you know what, I think I do have enough certainty, but I don't have enough variety. Something like that. In any case, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.